Story 1. The Cabin at the End of the Road. In the autumn of 2023, I found myself at odds with my father, our once close bond fraying under the weight of unspoken grievances and clashing wills. Desperate for space and independence, I stumbled upon a sublet opportunity that seemed like a gift from fate. A quaint two-story cabin nestled at the end of a lonely dirt road in a secluded corner of upstate New York. The landlord, a shadowy figure who preferred to remain at arm's length, was dealing with personal troubles and had abandoned the property temporarily. For me, a month-to-month lease was perfect, a temporary escape from the suffocating familiarity of my childhood home. The cabin was a curious relic of rustic charm, its weathered wooden exterior blending seamlessly with the dense forest that encircled it. Downstairs, a modest kitchen opened into a cozy living room, where a threadbare sofa faced a small television. A narrow staircase led to the second floor, which consisted of a single bedroom accessible through a peculiar hatch-like door set into the floor. The door, heavy and creaking, had no lock, a detail that gnawed at my nerves each night as I climbed into bed. Feeling oddly exposed despite the cabin's isolation, the surrounding area was sparsely populated, with a handful of similar cabins dotting the road. One appeared vacant, its windows dark and driveway empty, while the others housed neighbors I never met, their presence betrayed only by the occasional flicker of light or the hum of a car engine. I had been there a month, my belongings unpacked and my routine established, when the incident occurred. My job demanded grueling 12-hour shifts, leaving me drained and eager for the sanctuary of my bed. That night I returned home under a starless sky, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. I prepared a simple dinner, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich paired with a protein shake, and retreated upstairs, shutting the hatch door behind me. The television's soft glow filled the room as I settled in, the familiar drone of a late-night talk show lulling me towards sleep. Then a voice shattered the silence. "Who's up there?" it called, low and deliberate, echoing from somewhere below. My heart seized, my body jolting upright as adrenaline flooded my veins. The voice seemed to originate inside the cabin, though a sliver of doubt suggested it might have come from outside. I fumbled for the remote, silencing the television, and crawled to the small circular window above my bed. The darkness outside revealed nothing. No figures, no movement, just an oppressive void. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice trembling. The silence that followed was deafening, a heavy, suffocating presence that seemed to mock my fear. Gripping the hatch door's handle, I lifted it cautiously and peered down the staircase into the shadowed living room. In a moment of desperate hope, I called out my father's name, half convinced he might have driven out to reconcile. No response came. Summoning what courage I could, I descended the stairs, my bare feet cold against the wooden steps. I flicked on the living room light, expecting to find it empty, but the normalcy of the illuminated space did little to quell my unease. I checked the front porch light and peered out the windows, seeing no one. Confused and rattled, I turned off the lights and returned upstairs, closing the hatch and resuming my vigil with the television. Barely 5 minutes passed before a series of loud, deliberate bangs erupted against the hatch door. The sound was angry, purposeful, as if designed to terrify. My breath caught in my throat, my body frozen in place. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Someone was inside the cabin. The hatch, unsecured by any lock, was all that separated me from the intruder. For 20 agonizing minutes, I remained motionless, every creak of the cabin amplifying my terror. When I finally mustered the nerve to move, I reached for my phone, only to find it missing. Panic surged as I recalled leaving it downstairs in my exhaustion. With no other choice, I opened the hatch again, the television's flickering light casting eerie shadows down the stairs. I crept downstairs, my heart pounding, and made a split-second decision to flee. Barefoot, I bolted out the back door and sprinted toward the nearest neighbor's house, where a light glowed in the window. I pounded on the door, my voice hoarse as I pleaded for help. A figure appeared at the window, staring at me with unsettling intensity. "Please, I'm your neighbor. Someone's in my house. I need to call the police," I shouted. The figure didn't move, didn't respond, just watched with a cold, unblinking gaze. Fear turned to dread as I backed away, the neighbor's silence feeling complicit, sinister. With nowhere else to go, I returned to the cabin, locking the back door behind me and flooding the house with light. I searched frantically for my phone, finally finding it in my car's center console. As I climbed the stairs to check the bedroom, my blood ran cold. There on my bed sat a man, his silhouette stark against the television's glow. He was motionless, staring at the screen. I screamed, and he turned his head slowly, his face obscured in shadow. Before I could process more, I fled, dialing 911 from my locked car. As I spoke to the operator, I saw a figure slip past the backyard, vanishing into the woods. The police arrived swiftly, searching the cabin and finding no one. The officer suggested I find somewhere else to stay, and swallowing my pride, I drove to my father's house. The next day, I returned to collect my belongings, staying one final night to tie up loose ends. The landlord, when informed, refunded part of my rent, but asked only one question. What did the man look like? His abrupt silence afterward felt suspicious, as did the neighbor's eerie inaction. Was it all connected? The landlord's sudden departure, the neighbor's strange behavior, the intruder's brazen entry? I'll never know, but the memory of that night lingers, a haunting reminder of the fragility of solitude. Story 2: The Van in the Woods. It was a Tuesday night in the autumn of 2013, the kind of night where the air in southern Indiana carried a crisp bite and the stars hid behind a veil of clouds. I was 23, working a dead-end job at a local diner, and my car had been in the shop for a week, forcing me to walk the 3 miles home each night. The route wasn't unbearable. An hour's trek through the quiet streets of my small town, where the only signs of life after 10 p.m. were the occasional truckers bound for Indianapolis. My house sat off a series of dirt roads, flanked by dense forests that seemed to swallow sound and light alike. It was a path I'd grown accustomed to, though never entirely comfortable with. That night around 11 p.m., I was a mile into my walk when I turned onto the first dirt road. The gravel crunched under my boots, the only sound in the stillness. Then faintly I heard the low rumble of an engine. It was distant at first, growing louder with a deliberate slowness that set my nerves on edge. About a quarter-mile back I saw it, a van moving at a crawl, its headlights off. In my town, where a shady car dealership peddled vehicles with missing parts, a van with broken headlights wasn't unusual. I brushed it off, assuming the driver was just another local with a cheap ride. I continued down the dirt road, the van still creeping along the main street, but moments later the engine roared to life, the sound shattering the night. The van surged forward, its headlights suddenly blazing. My pulse quickened, but I told myself it was nothing, just a driver in a hurry. Then as the van approached the turn onto my road, the headlights flicked off again, and it slowed to a predatory crawl. Fear gripped me, cold and unyielding. I quickened my pace, glancing back every few steps. The van turned onto the dirt road, its silhouette unmistakable against the faint moonlight. I was only 500 feet ahead, my legs burning as I broke into a near run. I didn't dare look back, but I couldn't resist. What I saw stopped my heart. The van had stopped, both the driver's and passenger's doors flung open. A gunshot cracked through the air, sharp and close, and I sprinted with every ounce of strength I had. I veered off the road, plunging into the forest, and threw myself behind a massive rock, my breath ragged and my body trembling. Voices followed, chilling in their clarity. A man, middle-aged and authoritative, said, "I think she went into the woods." Then to my horror, a young girl's voice replied, "Okay, sir, I'll see if we can find her." 2 other girls' voices joined in, their tones eerily compliant. My mind raced with terrifying possibilities. Human trafficking, a cult, something far worse. The man's next words froze my blood. "Whoever finds her doesn't have to drink the blood tonight." The phrase echoed in my head, conjuring images of ritualistic horror. I clamped a hand over my mouth, stifling any sound, as footsteps rustled nearby. Time stretched into an eternity, each snap of a twig or rustle of leaves amplifying my terror. I was paralyzed, convinced I'd be found, and dragged into whatever nightmare this group represented. Then salvation came in the form of distant sirens. I stayed hidden, too afraid to move, until I saw the red and blue flashes of police lights through the trees. Summoning my courage, I stumbled out of the forest, screaming for help. The officers rushed to me, their faces grim. "Ma'am, do you know about this body?" one asked. Confusion turned to horror as I followed their gaze. There, in front of the police car, lay the mutilated body of a young woman, her naked form gutted and blood-soaked. I stammered out my story: the van, the man, the girls, the blood ritual. The officers listened, their expressions unreadable, and drove me home. Sleep eluded me that night. As I stared out my window, I saw it again. The same van, creeping down my street, headlights off. This time I was quick enough to jot down the license plate. I called the police, my voice shaking as I relayed the sighting. When they arrived, the van was gone, but what they told me was worse than I could have imagined. The license plate was registered in South Dakota, but reports of an identical van had surfaced that same night in Vermont, Nevada, Alaska, and Texas. The impossibility of it gnawed at me. A single vehicle couldn't be in 5 places at once. The police promised to follow up, but no call ever came. I left Indiana soon after, unable to shake the feeling that I'd escaped something unspeakably evil. To this day, I wonder if it was a coordinated cult, using fake plates to cover their tracks, or something darker, something that defies explanation. All I know is that when I see a van with its lights off, I run. Story 3: The Phantom Caller. My wife Gianna and I live in a quiet suburb, the kind of place where picket fences and manicured lawns paint a picture of predictable normalcy. We're not adventurers or thrill seekers. We're just a couple with steady jobs, a mortgage, and a routine that rarely deviates. Our evenings are spent cooking dinner, watching a show, or reading in bed before lights out at 11 p.m. It's the life we were raised to aspire to, and we've always found comfort in its simplicity. But one night not long ago, that comfort was shattered by an event so inexplicable that it still haunts us, defying every attempt at rationalization. It was a chilly evening, and after a rare dinner out at a local Italian restaurant, we returned home around 9 p.m. By 9:30, we were brushing our teeth, the hum of our nightly routine settling over the house. By 10, we were in bed, propped against the headboard, engrossed in an episode of our favorite drama. The old landline phone on the nightstand, a relic we kept more for nostalgia than necessity, sat silent until it didn't. At 10:45, its shrill ring cut through the room. Gianna, ever cautious, urged me not to answer. "Anyone calling this late can't be good news," she said, her voice tinged with unease. I hesitated, agreeing in principle, but the possibility of an emergency nagged at me. I reached for the receiver, but before I could lift it, the ringing stopped. The landline's ancient caller ID was useless, erasing any trace of the call the moment it ended. We shrugged it off. A wrong number, nothing more. But minutes later, the phone rang again. The screen flashed unknown number, an unusual sight for our small circle of contacts. Gianna's eyes narrowed, and we let it ring out, the silence that followed feeling heavier than before. When the phone rang a third time, urgency overrode caution. I snatched it up, expecting a family member in distress. Instead, I heard the familiar voice of our neighbor, Al, a reserve man who lived across the street with his wife. "Do you know that man standing in front of your house?" he asked, his tone calm but insistent. I froze, my mind struggling to process the question. "What are you talking about?" I replied. "Go outside," he said, and the line went dead. Gianna's face mirrored my confusion, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't go out there," she whispered. I assured her I'd just checked the window. Downstairs, I parted the living room curtains, scanning the front lawn. Nothing. No man. No movement. Just the quiet street bathed in the glow of streetlights. Annoyed at the thought of Al pulling a prank, I stepped onto the front stoop, peering into the bushes and down the sidewalk. The night was still, the air cold against my skin. I returned to bed, telling Gianna it was probably a joke, though the unease in her expression matched my own. Al wasn't the pranking type. He was a serious, low-key guy who kept to himself. Gianna insisted I call him back. I dialed his number, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a message, my tone sharp. "Hey Al, what was that call about?" "Call me back." Before I could set the phone down, it rang again. Unknown number. I answered, and Al's voice came through, slow and deliberate. Go outside. There's someone standing outside your house. He hung up before I could respond. Anger mingled with fear as I stormed downstairs, muttering about what the hell was going on. Gianna stayed in bed, her face pale. I checked the window again, and this time, my breath caught. At the end of our walkway, where it met the sidewalk, stood a figure. He wore a hooded jacket, the hood pulled low, obscuring his face in shadow. He was motionless, a dark silhouette against the streetlight's glow. My heart pounded as I opened the front door and shouted, "Can I help you?" He didn't move. I threatened to call the police, my voice shaking. The phone rang again, pulling me back inside. This time, the caller ID showed Al's number. I grabbed the kitchen phone, and Al's voice, normal now, not the eerie monotone from before, greeted me. "Hey, I just got your voicemail. What was that about? I didn't call you." I insisted he had, recounting the 2 calls about a man outside. He sounded genuinely confused, even alarmed, and said he didn't see anyone now. I rushed to the window. The figure was gone, the walkway empty. Frustration boiled over. I demanded Al tell me if this was a joke, warning that we'd have a problem if he was lying. He swore he wasn't, his voice steady, and put his wife on to vouch for him. Gianna, now beside me, confirmed we'd received the calls, her voice trembling. Al suggested someone was pranking us, but the explanation felt hollow. I hung up the downstairs phone, checking the window one last time. The street was empty, the night silent. We didn't sleep that night, our minds racing with questions. Who was the man outside? How had someone mimicked Al's voice so perfectly? Was it a prank, a glitch, or something darker? The next day, Al came over, equally shaken, and we pored over possibilities. Spoofed calls, a neighbor's grudge, even paranormal theories we didn't believe in. Nothing fit. The incident remains a wound in our sense of safety, a reminder that even in our normal, predictable suburb, the unknown can creep in, leaving only fear and unanswered questions in its wake.